1996, Satoshi Tajiri introduced the masses to a whole new world of incredible creatures. Initially known in Japan as Pocket Monsters, of course I'm referring to Pokemon. The world of Pokemon was originally introduced as a pair of Game Boy games developed by Game Freak. Pocket Monsters Akka and Midori released first in Japan on February 27, 1996. Initially being released as Red and Green editions, later that same year, on October 15th, a special Blue edition was also released only in Japan, and only as a mail-order special edition to subscribers of CoroCoro Comics. Originally debuting as Pocket Monsters Pikachu, Pokemon Yellow Special Pikachu Edition was released on September 12, 1999 in Japan, just days before the North American release of Red and Blue. Finally, on September 28, 1998, Pokemon Red and Blue made it to North America for release. Pokemon Green, however, never left Japan, leaving some Pokemon unplayable in these later versions of Red and Blue, and exclusive to the original copies of the games. Pokemon Blue became available to retail in Japan on October 10, 1999. By 1997, Pokemon already had combined sales of 10.6 million copies in Japan between Red, Green, and Blue Edition. The success of the game sparked more than just sales, however, as Japan began airing the beloved Pokemon anime series we all know and love today on April 1st, 1997. In 1998, North America had combined sales of 9.85 million copies of just Red and Blue, and in that same year, the Pokemon anime series reached North America as well, licensed by 4Kids Entertainment. The later release of Pokemon Yellow in North America on October 19, 1999, was designed to not only utilize the new technology of the Game Boy Color system, but to also add more elements from and loosely follow the storyline of the now popular anime series. The reception was incredibly positive, and the foundation for the Pokemon franchise had been laid. First debuting in Japan in October 1996, the Pokemon franchise jumped out of the video game realm to introduce the Pokemon trading card game. The trading card game later jumped to North America in December of 1998. At first, the trading card game was targeted at young children, but later became a competitive activity for all aged fans of the Pokemon franchise. From that point on, the Pokemon franchise moved and grew by generation. As new Pokemon games released, so did new seasons of the Pokemon anime series. On July 18, 1998 in Japan, the first Pokemon movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, was released. Both the theatrical and later home video versions of the film included a 21-minute short entitled Pikachu's Vacation, focusing on the franchise mascot, Pikachu. The film was later dubbed in English and distributed in North America by Warner Bros. Pictures and 4Kids Entertainment. The film released in North America on November 10, 1999. Despite its popularity, the first Pokemon movie received negative reviews by film critics. However, the film was a box office success worldwide, grossing $163.6 million overall in the box office. The film topped the charts in its opening weekend. In total, 17 films to date have been made around the Pokemon franchise, with the most recent edition, Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction. This 17th film in the franchise debuted in Japanese theaters on July 19, 2014, and is coming soon to North America. With every new season of the anime series, from the original episodes of the Indigo League all the way through the currently airing episodes of X and Y, new games and new generations of Pokemon have followed suit. The second generation of Pokemon began in 1999 with the release of Pokemon Gold and Silver for the Game Boy Color in Japan on October 14th, and in North America on October 15th, 2000. Just like the first generation, an enhanced version followed shortly after entitled Pokemon Crystal. It released in Japan on December 4th, 2000, and in North America on July 29th, 2001. The second generation added on to the 151 original Pokemon species with 100 brand new species. Pokemon wasn't only blowing up on handhelds, however, as the game franchise leaked onto home consoles as well. Although not considered games with a main storyline, games like Pokemon Stadium, releasing on February 29, 2000 in North America for the Nintendo 64, took the stage and allowed you to battle not only rental Pokemon, but also transfer Pokemon over from Game Boy games via the N64 Transfer Pack. Other home console Pokemon games include Nintendo 64 titles like Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Puzzle League, Hey You Pikachu. GameCube titles such as Pokemon Coliseum, Pokemon XD, Pokemon Channel, Pokemon Box Ruby and Sapphire. Wii titles such as Pokemon Battle Revolution, Pokepark Wii 1 and 2, and several WiiWare and later Wii U-ware downloadable games like Pokemon Rumble. Releasing first in North America on November 16, 2001, Nintendo presented the world with its smallest cartridge-based console they ever produced, the Pokemon Mini. The Pokemon Mini played a variety of Pokemon mini games, no pun intended. The tiny handheld included a real-time clock, an infrared port used to facilitate multiplayer gaming, an accelerometer, and a motor used to implement force feedback. In 2002, Pokemon entered its third generation with the release of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire for the Game Boy Advance. The game is released in Japan on November 21, 2002, and in North America, March 19, 2003. The games were once again later accompanied by an enhanced version, Pokemon Emerald. The third generation era also saw remakes of the original Pokemon games, now released as Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. The third generation introduced 135 new Pokemon species, making the total 386 Pokemon species in all. In 2006, Japan saw the beginning of the fourth generation of Pokemon, as the franchise expanded onto the Nintendo DS for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. The games released in Japan on September 28, 2006, and in North America on April 22, 2007, introducing 107 new Pokemon. With a total of 493 Pokemon now, players could now battle and trade their Pokemon via Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. A new era of battling and trading had begun. On September 12, 2009, Nintendo released remakes of Pokemon Gold and Silver in Japan for the Nintendo DS as well, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. The games later released in North America on March 14, 2010. Pokemon Black and White for the Nintendo DS ushered in the fifth generation of Pokemon on September 18, 2010 in Japan, and March 6, 2011 in North America. The fifth generation introduced 156 new Pokemon, totaling at 649 Pokemon species overall. Nintendo later released sequels to Black and White 2, which often referenced events in the first games, and allowed players to link their previous Black and White games to introduce different events based on how they played the first game. At last, releasing simultaneously worldwide on October 12, 2013, Pokemon X and Y for the Nintendo 3DS sparked the sixth and latest generation to date of Pokemon. Entering the third dimension for the first time, Pokemon X and Y broke ground for several reasons. Not only were they the first Pokemon games to be rendered in 3D, but they are also the first Pokemon games to release worldwide together. The sixth generation is continuing to grow. Set to release November 21st, 2014 in both Japan and North America, Nintendo announced the remakes of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, entitled Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Whether you're playing the video games to experience the journey or just to battle friends, whether you're playing the card game in a competition or just in your basement, whether you watch the anime series religiously or just to follow the adventures of Ash Ketchum, whether you've followed the franchise since the start or you're a newcomer, one thing unites us as Pokemon fans: the undying drive to catch 'em all.